And we've got a clock. And we've got that. We should be good. Pop out the chat so that I can see it. Oh, Lord. All right. Mouse is kind of being a jerk, but we're going to roll with it. All right. I click on that, click on you. All righty. I think that we've got everything all in place. Ugh. All right. Well, I want to welcome everybody here to the show. It's going to be a little noisier than usual today. There's always a bit of a hum in the background, but that's because my computer is quite close to the microphone. It's an issue that I will eventually fix. But normally I turn off the furnace, or at least turn off the thermostat so the furnace doesn't kick in during the show. And I would do that today, except that currently it is -8 degrees Fahrenheit. And for those of you who live in Celsius land, that's -22. So it's a real cold one today. And so I'm not interested in making the furnace go off, so it's going to be a little bit noisier than usual. Otherwise, I hope everyone else is doing well. Let's see here. Also, I updated the firmware on the little capture cam link thingy that connects the camera to the computer. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we won't have any freeze frames like we did previously, but we'll see. I did the Patreon live show yesterday for 2 hours and didn't have any freeze frames then, so knock on wood. Alrighty. Got hello from Singapore, Denver, Pittsburgh, Newcastle upon Tyne, Portugal, Scotland, actually a couple from Scotland, right in a row, Dallas, Texas, Turin, Italy, Delaware, what else have we got here? Afghanistan, Cancun, Mexico, Northern Ireland. What else have we got? William Powell is currently freezing his arse off in Indiana. Yeah, no, I feel you. Rob says, I thought it was cold here when it was -5 degrees Celsius in Newcastle. No, we're in a bit of a thing right now. Yeah, it's what they sometimes call a polar vortex. The jet stream in the northern part of the United States modifies for some reason, and it pulls a whole bunch of air way down from way up north in Canada and the Arctic, and then kind of loops it over the top part of the United States sometimes it happens for a couple, 3 weeks, but by this time next week, it should be back in the positive 20s Fahrenheit, which is, I don't even know, -2, -3, something like that, Celsius. Anyway. What else have we got? Bologna, Italy, Topeka, got another Scotland, Nottingham, Dover, Texas, Pennsylvania, Northern Illinois. Let's see, Connecticut, Sweden, Gravesend, Wexford, Ireland, Sweden, Columbus, Ohio. We'll be making it to Origins again this year. That's part of the talk today, yes. Moving to morning from California, Quebec, Seattle, Georgia. We've got people from all over. It's also pretty bright and sunny. Usually when it's really cold, it is difficult to then also be cloudy, I think. I'm no meteorologist. I'm no weather scientist. But I think it has something to do with just the moisture can't stay in the air very easily when it's super crazy cold. So yesterday, because the Patreon show is usually from noon my time until 2, as opposed to, say, 9 till 11, the sun had moved. And so it was just incredibly bright coming in here. And the curtains weren't doing any good. So at least today the lighting is a little bit more steady. Hopefully we'll see how that goes. We've got a Brazilian in Florida, Bournemouth, UK. First time catching the show live. Well, that's good to hear. Hangfire 100. We've got Paul Noxie here, and we've got Wombat 74. Had a lovely 111 Fahrenheit here during the week in Melbourne. Yeah, no, that's you guys. I always forget you guys are in summer when we're in winter. So yeah, I get that. David says, just wanted to say, enjoying your progress vlogs lately. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. They're fun to make. I'll just let you guys know that there wouldn't be one this Monday anyway because it's the Every Other Sunday show. However, neat fact, the next Sunday will also be the Every Other Sunday show. There's going to be 2 in a row, and the reason for that is because the Sunday after that, which would be Every Other Sunday from today, I'll be in Vegas for the Las Vegas Open. So rather than go 3 weeks and skip, I'm just going to have 2 in a row, and then the schedule will be funny for a bit, but then it will switch back just in time for Adepticon because currently Adepticon fits in the current schedule, but if I have to switch it because of LVO, then it won't, so I have to switch it back, and it's a whole thing. I'll explain more of that later too. But yeah, so you probably won't see the next Hobby Progress vlog until like the 11th of February, but that'll be the 3rd one, which will be the finish for the Iron Skulls boys, the orcs for Shadespire. So, yeah, but they've been fun to make, and it's I think it's good. The thing about the Hobby Progress vlogs that I think is useful, and it wasn't necessarily even originally my full plan. It was just kind of a, oh, well, that'd be a good idea too. But now I think it's really becoming the idea behind those vlogs. The trick is that a lot of people show you how to paint stuff, and they're like, okay, well, the next step we're going to paint this, this color, and then we're going to paint this color, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. And in a lot of those types of tutorials, you generally don't understand why. You know what I mean? It's like watching a cooking show, and they just say, well, then you do this, and then you do this, and then you do this. But there are some cooking shows, like, I'm not a big cooking show fan, but I know that Alton Brown used to explain things more and be like, the reason you do this is because of this, and the reason this is happening is because of that. So for me, I'm not getting into the science behind painting necessarily here. I'm just getting into the thought process behind, like, well, why am I going to try to paint this way? Why am I going to prime this color instead of this color? Why am I going to try to paint this part before this part? And hopefully the idea is that will help you folks, newer painters or intermediate painters as well, to look at it and go, oh, I see. Because you really do need to think. Too many people will sit down and just start painting, and then all of a sudden go, paint themselves into a corner, not literally, but figuratively, and then be like, well, now I've goofed it all up. But if you think about it at least a little bit before you start to go and start painting and start thinking of your process before you actually start to process, I think that can help a lot. So that's part of what I'm doing here, is kind of showing you the thought process about why I'm doing it. But anyway, that's where that's at. Jeff Anderson says, moving across the United States starting today, went from west to east, stopping in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Well, that'll be cold, probably as well. Hello from Belfast. Got New Zealand. Let's see here. Rachel says, any chance of you hitting any of the UK events? A show from Warhammer World would be cool. Maybe. I'm not sure. That's not planned yet. That being said, now that our government is open again, actually, I think probably this week, most likely Monday or Tuesday, I'm starting the process of getting a passport, because I've never traveled outside the country before, so I've never seen the reason to have a passport. And I know at the age of 47 that a lot of people are like, what do you mean you don't have a passport? I just, America's a big country, and I really haven't started traveling much until just recently. So, anyway, I would like to go to the UK at some point, and I'm looking forward to hopefully being able to do that. I don't know exactly yet if it's going to be this year. I do have plans to go to do something in Canada a little bit later this year. So there's that. But it's more of a potential than it was last year, because last year I didn't have a passport, and in theory this year I hopefully will. So we'll see how that goes. Gillian says, working on my Iron Jaws boys, was going to do black armor, but it looked funny, so going with the bog standard yellow. I mean, it's personal preference. I was not a fan of the yellow, so that's why I wanted to go with the kind of more blackish, kind of metallic sort of thing. I may still do a little bit of I was thinking about maybe doing a little bit of a red accent because there's a couple extra like little plates here and there that are just sort of tacked on. So I was thinking about maybe making some of those like red or something along those lines to make it a little different because it'll help also to red being the opposite color of green could make that kind of stand out a little bit better. I hate to say the word pop, but it might pop. Tom says first live watcher in Cambridge. Would love to hear your views, if any, on Fantasy Flight Games Legion and the characters you can create with their new release. I don't know anything about the new character creation for Legion, and I'm assuming you're talking about Star Wars Legion. I have played one game of Star Wars Legion, a demo game at my local shop, and though it didn't, well, honestly, one of the reasons that I didn't get into it, there's several reasons that I didn't get into it. Number one is that I've already got a bunch of other games that I'm currently playing, and I didn't think I needed another one. Number two, I kind of did not like the models, especially for the Imperials. Like the Imperial Walker or whatever, that's cool. They're like kind of more ATST sort of a situation. I mean, that thing was neat, obviously. But like the regular, like the Stormtroopers, I just did not find them to be very dynamically posed. I've said it on the show several times before, that Darth Vader model looks like he's reaching for something out of the fridge. I mean, he's supposed to be like scary with it, but it looks like he's grabbing something off a shelf. It's just not very good model wise. The rule set I thought was interesting. I really liked the orders cards that you start like every turn with, and how you have to kind of bid to see if you go first, but some of the cards that have the higher number that allow you to bid better will then kind of sort of, I don't want to say railroad you, but they'll move you in a certain way about what you can and can't activate that turn and things like that. So I thought that was really interesting and creative. But the rest of it was not necessarily where I thought I wanted to go. You know what I mean? It was okay, but it was... so I don't know, and that's why I haven't pulled into it. Now, I've not heard really much of anything about this new character creation stuff. I'll have to look into it, though, because that does sound interesting. Yeah. Meta Kirito says, new camera. Yeah, a couple 3 weeks ago, maybe more. Well, a couple 3 episodes ago. It's not a webcam. It's actually a mirrorless Panasonic Lumix G7 with a 25 millimeter lens on it. And I like that it gives the shallower depth of field and all that stuff, and it's just a higher fidelity image. It's plugged into the computer via an Elgato Cam Link, which is this little dongle that makes the computer think that an HDMI input or output is a webcam. And then XSplit's like, oh yeah, that's fine, it's a webcam, it's great. And it's worked pretty well, except for a couple of times where the image has locked up. So you guys can still hear me. I can change the scenes and do, stuff like this and stuff like that and whatever. But I'm frozen, you know what I mean? And so I think it was last episode of the show, I tried to fix it by unplugging the camera, and that did not fix it. That just screwed up the focus. It was a whole thing. So I updated the firmware. What day is it today? Sunday? I updated the firmware like Friday night or Thursday night. And it didn't choke out at all during the Patreon live show yesterday, and that was 2 hours. So knock on wood, it should be fine now, I hope. So yeah, but it does. It gives a nicer image, I think. So Corvus Games Terrain says that the latest Star Wars Legion sculpts are a lot better. Still not to the level of Games Workshop, but far better than the ones in the core set. Boba Fett is really nicely done. I've seen pictures of the Boba Fett one, yeah, and that is a nice looking sculpt. Randall says, I played a demo of Legion last year at Adepticon and really enjoyed it. I know that there's a lot of... I know that there's people playing it, but I know that there was people that in my area that started playing it just because they were huge Star Wars fans, and that's what they do, and then they kind of stopped. So I know my local shop is not... They're sitting on it with a bunch of it on the shelf and not real happy about that because it's not moving. And it, like I said, it's not like... Sometimes a local shop will be like, oh, this sure doesn't sell, but that's because they don't ever give demos of it or try to get actually people to buy stuff. My local shop runs demos. Like I said, that's where I got my demo. So they're pretty proactive in my opinion, but they're having a hard time selling the stuff in our local area. Hopefully over time it will build. I know in the past Fantasy Flight has kind of put out a game, and then if it doesn't take off immediately, they sort of they kind of did that to some degree with Rune Wars. That being said, I didn't really like Rune Wars, so maybe a lot of people didn't like it. Anyway, we'll see, though. It's a big license, obviously, Star Wars. That's a big deal, so it's not something they can easily just be like, well, we're going to just throw it in the bin because I'm sure they paid a lot, or whatever. So, yeah, definitely. Marco says, "Hi there, first time for me at the live show. Any thoughts on Kill Team Arena?" I was supposed to get a copy. I got an email last week saying, "Hey, we're sending you a copy, and don't talk about it until I think it was 5 a.m. my time on Saturday." And I thought, "Oh, okay, cool. I'll get it and take a look at it and everything like that." And then it never showed. So I never got a tracking number. I'm not sure if it's. I mean, I know the weather's been sucky, but I don't know if it got stuck someplace or anything like that. So maybe it'll show up on Monday or Tuesday. I don't know. We'll see. I know that other people have gotten it. I know Ash from Guerrilla Miniatures Games got a copy and has done a couple of videos, so you might want to check those out if you're interested. But other than what they've published on the Warhammer community page, excuse me, I don't really know much else about it because I haven't been able to like thumb through it or take a look at it. So yeah. J Tick says, "Greetings from warm, beautiful Milwaukee. Currently 80 degrees inside my house. I know it's not 80 degrees outside, and it seems like it's even 80 degrees seems awfully warm even in your house. We normally run things here about 67 degrees, but yeah, I know that Jay, you've probably had to work a lot lately with all the snow and stuff and everything. So it sucks that it sucks outside. Let's see what else here." DJ Todd P. Harris says, "You did an unboxing of Star Saga in the past. Did you ever get a game in? What were your thoughts? I just got a copy in the process of painting the minis." I've gone through the rules a bit and looked at the components and stuff like that, but I have not really played it yet. I'm interested, you know what I mean? It's one of those games that's a little bit... It reminds me a little bit, at least in format, of, like Dungeon Saga, Dwarf King's Hold, that kind of stuff. So I'm a little interested to see from a sci-fi aspect how that works out. And it's, again, kind of tiles and hallways and things like that. So it's a cool concept, and I like the fact that you can play it a lot of different ways from what I understand. So I'm interested, but I haven't, unfortunately, been able to sit down and actually like go through the rules and play. But I would like to. I haven't been able to go through the rules and play. I've gone through the rules, but I haven't been able to play. So... and it's one of those deals where you can read the rules, but they don't really make sense until you actually play. So I couldn't tell you, oh yeah, well, you do this in the such and such phase. And again, it was a while ago too, and my memory is kind of garbage. So there's that too. Kevin F. says, "Working on assembling Zangors in a Demon Prince, but process is slow because my gaze keeps getting drawn towards Uncle Adam's handsome visage." Well, thank you. You could turn the monitor or something and just listen if you want to. If you've got to get work done, I don't want to have to keep distracting you. So there's that. Ray says, "Adam, I don't play minis in the Warhammer universe. I'm a bolt action guy, but I like listening to you while working on minis. A lot of your advice applies to the bolt action world too. You're my favorite show." Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm interested in Conflict 47. I have a United States Army. And I have built some. I can't think of the name of the walker that comes in the starter box. The walker that comes in the starter box I think I probably built 3 or 4 riflemen that came in the starter box before I decided, I'm going to order the other set of newer riflemen where the guns are attached to the arms. The original riflemen, like... the arms, each arm was a separate piece and each gun was a separate piece, so you had to try to figure out how to glue the arms and then glue the gun in there, which was really hard. So they decided, what we'll do is we'll make instead basically the gun and the 2 arms all one piece, and then you just glue it to the body, which was way easier. So I ordered that, and I think I have another. I built the Sherman T, which is is it the Sherman T with the... It's a tank, but instead of a normal gun, it's got like a crazy Tesla coil plasma gun thing, and I built that. Although I need to modify it a little bit, but a lot of other stuff has gotten in the way. But I really wanted to have it ready to go for Valhalla last year because there was a lot of bolt action and Conflict 47 that was going on at Valhalla. A guy on here sometimes called, oh gosh, I can't think. It was something Toast. Disguised Toast? Chronic Toast? Chronic Toast. He was running that stuff at Valhalla. So when I first started getting into some historicals, our group kind of went Flames of War, and I wish we would have gone bolt action, frankly. I like the scale better and that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's where that's at. Hey, Uncle Adam, can you add me to the TM Showcase in Facebook? I want to show my first paint minis. I have not added anybody to the Paint Showcase on Facebook for quite some time. There was a bunch of shenanigans that happened before Christmas, and I haven't added anybody. So I'm gonna probably start doing it again soon, but yeah, I haven't added anybody, so it's not anything personal against anybody. I've just kind of basically locked everything down after all the problems, and that's kind of where that's at right now. So I just want to let people know that, I guess. Lazar, which I may be mispronouncing. Greetings from cold Poland. A few years ago, I stopped building my army because it was too much work. Now I'm building my third kill team and a bunch of terrain, and I freaking love it. Well, that's good, man. I think that's good. It's one of those deals where, sometimes you're just not feeling it, and sometimes it's the game that makes it you not feel it. Sometimes it's what's going on in your life that doesn't, that's other things that are distracting you or whatever. Maybe work is really hard, or you just had some new kids, and that's difficult because they want you to look at them all the time and feed them and stuff like that, from what I understand. So that's a lot of work, and so sometimes it doesn't work out that you can really get into your hobby stuff. Sometimes it's a benefit. Sometimes, I've talked to people a bunch of times who are I've just had a kid, and when the kid sleeps, then I hobby, because I can do it pretty quietly, right next to them, and they're in a bassinet or a box or whatever it is you put kids in, and they're right there. And then if they start to fuss and make noises, well, I can stop. Whereas if I was playing video games, there'd be explosions and swearing or whatever, and all that kind of stuff, and now the kid's awake. So, yeah, so it depends on everybody's situation is different, and sometimes it's just you're just not feeling it. Your mind's gone into different directions and things like that, and that's fine. But yeah, it's good. I think one of the big reasons why I'm always trying to get people into the hobby is because I think it's a good hobby for people to have mentally, because it's meditative, it's stress relieving, you're focusing and working with your hands and that kind of stuff. Corvus Games Terrain says, is it the Coyote in the K47 US starter? I think so. It's Coyote or the Grizzly. I think I own both, but I think the Coyote's what comes in there. It's the smaller one. But yeah, it was a fun model to build too. I mean, it's mostly resin. I think the main body is resin and the arms and legs are all metal. I think so. And Sherman T is correct. I got that name right. Even though it should be a Sherman P if it's more of a plasma weapon, but I think they call it a Tesla weapon. So anyway, different thing. Clinton says, I love the Conflict 47 bag of dice mechanism. Yeah, I mean, and they do that in bolt action too. That is the one thing that I really wish they would have done with 8th edition 40K. Man, that would have been great. So for those of you that don't know, the way that bolt action and Conflict 47 work is that, let's say I have 5 units in my army and you have 6 units in your army. So I would have, let's say, green dice because I'm American, and let's say you are playing Axis, and so you have gray dice. So I would put 5 green dice into this little bag, and then you would put 6 gray dice into the same bag, and then we would shake up the bag, and then you reach in and you pull out a die. And so if it's a green die, I get to activate one of my units. It's my choice. If it's a gray die, you get to activate one of yours. So it's randomish, except that if I get to do 3 or 4 in a row, it's just it's random. But the thing is that well, I know I still have 6 dice in there, so he may do a whole bunch of his initially, but then I will get to do a whole bunch of mine in a row, eventually. And so it just is kind of, instead of that whole first turn, oh, I got first turn, oh, I'm going to try to steal the initiative and all that kind of jazz, and the back and forth and the back and forth. That's the thing I love about Kill Team and Age of Sigmar that a lot of people don't like, is that at least every turn you're rolling for initiative, as opposed to in 40K where you roll at the beginning and then it's just the way it is the rest of the game. So that's the thing I wish. I mean, and I've played 40K that way before. We've done it just to try it out, where we just put in dice of a different color, for our units, and then we just pick out of there, and then we kind of do it that way. And I think it honestly works. So, I mean, not great. There's little things here and there you have to sort of fudge. But I really like that system. Some people don't like the randomness to it. I think that it helps to for my mind, it keeps the game a little bit more interesting. I understand it's not as easy to be competitive when you're got that much randomness built into it, but I don't really do competitive, so it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's a cool system. That's one of the things I love most about like Conflict 47 is that part of that system, because the rest of the game, in my mind, feels a lot like 5th edition 40k. And I know that a lot of people who work at Warlord left Games Workshop and started Warlord, so I think that they kind of took some of that sensibility with them. And so there's a lot of Conflict 47 that reminds me of 5th edition, but the dice bag thing is really, I think, one of the coolest things. So let me see here. Joshua Daniel Flores says, what do you think about the new Reaper Bones Black Owlbear? Do you plan on getting it? I bought an Owlbear. Who the heck? Oh, I bought the WizKids Owlbear, I think. I'm 98, or I thought about doing it. I'm pretty sure I bought it. I don't remember where I was. I was either at a convention or I was at my local shop, but I came across one of the WizKids. You know, they've got those new ones that are for Pathfinder and D&D, and they've got they're kind of pre-primed, that gray color. And there was an Owlbear, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. I would like to paint that someday. I don't know that I've seen the Reaper Bones Black Owlbear. I've seen the Reaper Bones Black, like the new darker material that's not white, but I don't think I've seen the Owlbear sculpt. I'll have to take a look at it. Night World Mini says, are you doing any vids with Sam again? I'm sure we will. He and I are actually both going to Nova Open, so maybe at least we'll be hanging out a little bit there. He and I when was the last time that we hung out? We went to dinner with Emily. She came to get classes from Sam. She came. She's a Patreon supporter and stuff like that. I don't think that she's in the chat today, but she came and was taking classes from Sam, because Sam does classes from his house too if you want to travel to him. And then we all went out to dinner. And so that was the last time that I kind of hung out with him. That was in early January, like the 6th or something like that. And so, yeah, we'll see each other when we get to Vegas. Currently, we don't have any plans to do a video, but we always kind of do usually 2 or 3 sets of videos a year if we can. So, yeah, that's where we're at. So right now, if you want to see more Sam, you should definitely try to watch him on Twitch. If you just go to Twitch and type in Sam Lens, you'll probably find him. But I think it's twitch.tv. And again, I should probably write this down someplace. Twitch.tv/Samson Arts or Samson Art. I'm not sure which one, and I always forget. And then someone says, you should put it on your monitor. I'm like, yeah, I probably should. But yeah, check him out on Twitch. He usually streams on Wednesdays and Thursdays, like afternoon time, Central Time. So let's see, if it's 2 p.m., that's about 8 p.m. GMT, I think. So that's how it works. I recently watched your video on hobby hoarding. Did you ever make progress on your basement of shame? I have sold some stuff, and I have just put other stuff on shelves so that it's a little bit better organized. But I have there's some things I'm just like, I'm never gonna paint this. So I have sold some, but it takes some time. I should probably do some more, but yeah, I've made a little bit of progress, not a lot, let's say. Let's see here. Daniel says, thank you so much for all the content and inspiration you provide. I'm new to the hobby and have started a Space Marine army, and then you got me into Kill Team, and I'm approaching completion of my first Kill Team roster, Tyranids with some light to moderate conversion work, depending on the model. And my son, who is 9, is about to start his Grey Knight Kill Team. Well, that's cool. Yeah, no, Kill Team, again, I'm a big fan of it, and it's the game that I play the most these days, as it seems, and it is one of those things that's great because it's just kind of a buffet style. You can sort of dip into, I'll do a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of that. Shadespire's along the same lines, but it's a little bit more board gamey. But that may be something for you to take a look at, too, especially with a young one. Shadespire, if you want to get into that, like the starter box for Shadespire, you're going to have 2 forces in there, and all the cards and the boards and all the dice and all the stuff that you need, and it's like, I think $60 American or something like that, 50 or 60. So that's not a bad thing too. And the models are push fit; they go together very easily, and they're colored plastic, but you can paint them and make them look nice. But yeah, so that's something to think about as well if you're into that kind of thing too. But if your 9-year-old is really enjoying Kill Team, then I'd say certainly work with that as well. Let me see here. Dave says, have you seen or tried the War Colors Legacy paints, which are meant to mimic those discontinued Citadel paints of the 1990s? I've never used any kind of War Colors, not because I don't want to, but just I don't know anybody who sells them anywhere near here. There's always a booth at Adepticon, and it's a store somewhere in Illinois called Games Plus, I think. And they always have a booth that sells, like you walk into this booth and you're like, wow, I had no idea that Vallejo made so many different kinds of special effects paints. Or what, I mean, it's like, it's the stuff that you can never find anywhere, and they just bring all of it. And it's just crazy weird tools and all kinds of stuff like that. That all being said, I don't think that even they carry generally War Color. So I don't know if it's something you can only get in Europe or if it's something you can only get online and there's like no stores that carry it. Yeah, so that's kind of that's frankly probably why I haven't tried any of that stuff. So, but it's interesting that they're trying to make the colors that look like the old colors. So that's kind of a cool idea. Paul Noxie says that Kill Team definitely turned me from just a painter into a gamer. Yeah, I think it's a good setup for that kind of thing. Cletus 3K says, is Kill Team Commanders worth getting? Is it a good value or just necessary? It's not necessary. You can easily play Kill Team without it. The way that Commanders works is that if you decide to play a Commanders scenario, because you can't play technically you're not supposed to play Commanders with a normal Kill Team scenario, because normal Kill Team scenarios are designed for 100 points. Commanders is designed, basically first step one is that it makes your list now 200 points, and then you have to have a commander in there as well. Now commanders, depending on the army, they come in levels: level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, and you can't, unlike normal Kill Team where like as you play the game your people level up a little bit, your specialists do. You don't have that with commanders. In commanders, you pick at the beginning of, let's say, the campaign or whatever. If you're playing a longer campaign, you buy your commander at the level, and they're going to stay at that level for the entire time. So let's say you go with a level 4, which is the most expensive, Imperial Guard, like Commissar. Well, he's like, I think 65 points. So that's, and then now you've got 65 points. You got 135 points left to spend on regular Imperial Guard, and it's a 200-point list. Now, if you decided to go with a Broodlord for your Tyranids that was 4th level, I think the Broodlord is 196 points, which means you get them and like a Termagant, and that's your 200 points. So it's kind of interesting the way they've designed it. It's basically, it's definitely an expansion. It's not something you need, but if you want to start playing with some cool, like I'm really looking forward eventually once I get my Broodlord built, I want to take basically just a Broodlord versus an entire 200 points worth of Imperial Guard and just see what happens. Like, is it just weight of fire going to take the Broodlord out? Is the Broodlord going to just plow through them all? I don't know. So that's what I want to find out. But it's not a requirement to play Kill Team. It's a requirement to play Commanders. You need the Commanders book, and then what else is in there? I don't know. I think there's maybe some cards and some tokens, but it's basically just a book in a box. But it's, if you want to go that way and you want to expand into it that way, and use some of those characters, those bigger, tougher, scarier characters, then Commanders is interesting. But if you just want to play normal Kill Team, then it's not something you need. J-Tick says, I've tried to hunt down War Color. It's an overseas order only. Yeah, I kind of thought that was probably the case. Brendan says, hello from Glasgow, Scotland. Enjoying a lazy Sunday building the Caradon Overlord Start Collecting box. Those dwarves with the flying boats are pretty cool. Excuse me. My cold is mostly gone, but not quite. I am very glad to have had the cold that I had last week, even though it was pretty horrible. I'm glad to have it then as opposed to in a couple of weeks when I go to Vegas. So I take that as a benefit. Let me see here. VJ Morph says, hopefully getting my TMX accommodations locked in tomorrow. Getting excited and very real now. That's, yeah, I'm looking forward to TMX as well. I'm going to maybe, hopefully, update the website this afternoon/evening with that stuff, so that'll be good. Julian says, my girlfriend bought a box of Harlequins as her first foray into minis, gaming, and painting. These look tough to paint, even from me as a somewhat advanced painter. Do you have any advice for her? I don't know really anything about Harlequins as far as like gameplay. The murder clowns are not necessarily my most favorite models in the game. That all being said, I would definitely say don't try painting the weird checkerboard pants and all that stuff. Like pick an easier paint scheme. Like when you see those models on the box and they've got the weird like, you know, blue and red or purple and green checkerboard, you know, things going on their pants and all that stuff, I always think to myself, no way. There's no way I would even bother painting it like that. So try to do something, you know, be bright and colorful, I guess, because that's what their thing is, but don't try to, that's a big bite to chew, you know what I mean? Don't go that way. I would not go with the checkerboards and the crazy patterns and stuff like that, because those are really, really tough. Let me see here. Chris Coogan says, you're in Wisconsin. Do colds ever go away completely? I mean, normally I don't have colds. Normally I have some allergies here and there. And usually in the winter there's not too much in the way of allergies because all the plants are sleeping or whatever. But yeah, no, that is problematic. The actual cold doesn't, no, not really. I mean, in the summer, then it's hot frequently. You know, in the summer, there are times when it's, you know, not like Arizona hot where it's always 120 or whatever in the summer, but it's still, there's times we get up into the low hundreds, but a lot of times it's maybe 90s and 80s. So, yeah. Zachary says, as someone from Iowa, no, colds are basically year-round. I mean, summer colds are way worse than winter ones, because like when winter, I don't know, but yeah, summer colds suck a lot in comparison. There's something to be said about having a cold, but at least kind of being cozy and covered up in blankets. But when it's really hot out and you've got a cold and your nose is running all the time, that's way worse in my opinion. Oh, the furnace has finally reached proper temperature. Let me see here. Zingbo says that Kill Team Commanders are a lot of fun. Adds a lot of new choices and opens out the psychic phase a lot. That's true. Commanders, if you're not real happy with the psychic phase in regular Kill Team, Commanders adds a lot more to that too for the Commander characters. Like obviously, you know, kind of that way. So. Griffin says, I got some Beasts of Chaos and Skaven for Christmas, and I played my very first game last night. I got dunked on, but I enjoyed it. I think that's important to understand that when you first start, it's going to take some time to get to where you want to be, you know, strategically or whatever. And, you know, if you're like me, it's not really the important part, the winning. It's more the having fun. So, yeah, it's good to keep that attitude and kind of like, be like, yeah, this is, you know, this, I enjoyed it even though I kind of lost. But if you're one of those people who really likes to learn too and get better and improve, then it's a great thing too, because you can be like, all right, well now I know what not to do in that situation, and then you can kind of put that information away, and hopefully as you keep doing that over and over and over again, you kind of learn, and that's the whole point, I guess. Jester says, hey, Uncle Adam, I've been watching your videos nonstop for over 3 to 4 months now, and have returned to the hobby after 16 years now, so thanks. I've been slowly painting the Warhammer to get started. Well, that's cool. Yeah, it's, I'm glad to hear it when people are getting back into the hobby, or people are getting into the hobby for the first time. Again, like I've said, I think it's a good hobby for people to just, it's meditative and stress relieving and all that stuff that I kind of said before, and I think it's good for people to get into that. So that's why I do it. What else have we got? When painting the terrain for the Kill Team starter set, would you recommend building it as recommended or going wild with your imagination? That's a good question. What I did was I tried to build it, I think I built it about as close as to the instructions as possible. And I think that's not a bad idea, because if you then want to start going crazy and build extra weird stuff, you can then go and buy some more of the kits, because they sell that terrain separately in different size boxes. There's like a real small one that's like maybe $35. There's like a $50 box. There's a $75 box and like a $100 box, I think. And they come like one of the box. I think the $100 box comes with like 2 cool statues that don't come with the starter or anyplace else, and all that kind of stuff. And so there's differences between the different kits. So if you just want to sit down and play a normal game of Kill Team, then having the pieces that they kind of give you the instructions for in the box is a good idea, I think. But then if you decide, I want to see how tall a building ruin that I can make, or I want to do a lot of small little pieces, or whatever you want to do, then I would go maybe afterwards pick up a couple of those sets, from your local shop or whatever, the other sets that are the same, and then do that. And also understand that if you build certain pieces right, you can make them kind of modular. With those Kill Team sets, let me go and see if I can find... because if you build them following their instructions, then you might not be able to do this. But if you don't... Let me... Boop. There we go. Ooh. All right, so... oops, sorry about that. Click... bonk to the mic. And then I hit that thing. Where is painting and modeling where you get terrain stuff? Where's the terrain stuff? Because the sets can be very modular if you want to. There we go, terrain. And city ruins. Yeah. So... like, you can barely see it here, but right here in the center, there's this kind of like, they make a bunch of these like broken columns, and so they kind of have you glue them to the top. Like if this entire top floor, the second floor wasn't there, but then you also glued those little bumps onto each of the top of those columns, then you could not take another piece and stick it on top, like a piece like this. You couldn't just drop one of these things on top of your flat top and be like, oh, now it's modular and now there's a wall there, but other times there's not. So that's kind of the downside to putting those weird little column bumps on top. And I don't see a good close-up picture anyplace else. But it's this thing here. They have a bunch of those in the set. And so when you are putting it together, think about, do I want to put those there? Because if you do, then you can't really stack and modularize anything later on down the road. So just think about that. But otherwise, I think they're great. They're great sets. I really enjoy them, and I think they work out quite well that way. So let me see here. Gonna do that. Gonna do this. Gonna get back to this. All right. Zingbo says, regarding the Kill Team terrain, I find the big building a bit awkward to use. It takes up a lot of space on the board and can unbalance the map depending on the teams involved. It can. I mean, I generally try to put it a little bit more in the center when we're playing, because then it's kind of in the way for everybody, So, yeah, it depends. But I enjoy using it. I think it's cool. I think it's a cool looking building, and but you can also just go with a lot of the small stuff if you want to and build it that way too. It's totally up to you. Gaddis Gaming says, sorry I'm late. Well, that's good to see you, Lee. What else have we got here? I came from Magic the Gathering into Warhammer Kill Team Age of Sigmar 40k. Recently bought 2 Dark Vengeance boxes and got one of them as a limited edition for just 80 euros. So that's like 2 extra Kill Teams. Absolutely, yeah. No, that's cool. That's and it comes with the limited edition mini. Yeah, I think I have one of those too, because when Dark Vengeance first came out, like the limited edition mini was like the only way you could get it, I think. And then later on they were out of it because it was limited edition, and then became more difficult. And I don't remember if I flipped it on eBay or not, because I didn't use it. I don't think. I may still have it, but I probably flipped it. I don't know if they're worth a lot more these days. Maybe they are, but Daniel says, what do you think about Funko's Space Marines? I've seen opposite comments. Personally, I think it's a good idea to bring young people into Warhammer. I mean, I don't see myself buying it, but I have no problem. It makes sense because they make a Funko Pop for nearly everything. So it makes sense, but it's not my cup of tea. I don't know why. I do have some. Actually, I was at the local shop and talking about those Funko Pop things, and it reminded me that I have some older collectibles for 40K. So years ago, 15 years ago, maybe more, Games Workshop for a while made these sculpts that were probably, I don't know, 7 to 8 inches tall, and they were like, there was like an Ultramarine, there was a Dark Angel, and they were all like holding guns and shooting, and they were all painted and all that kind of stuff. And you bought them in these boxes. They were like $45-50 at the time. They're made out of resin, I think, like a hard, super hard resin. And they were pre-painted and, like I said, and everything. And I own at least 2, maybe 3, but at least 2. But it's been so long. Like, I used to have them out at our old place before we bought this house, and we've owned this house almost 9 years now. So they've been sitting in a box in the basement since we moved. And I, like I said, nearly forgotten about them. And now I'm like, I should take them to the studio and set them up there and stuff. So I want to go down and look for them in the basement and find them and take them to the studio. But they're kind of cool. I like them better than the Funko Pops, to be honest. But I'm glad they're doing that, and going that direction. So yeah. Tyler says, "Hey, Uncle Adam, planning on making it down to Adepticon this year?" Oh, absolutely. Actually, I am teaching 2 classes at Adepticon this year. Both about YouTube, and one is about the more technical stuff and the cameras and the microphones and all that jazz. And the other one is about the content, the digital strategy, marketing, that kind of jazz. So the content and marketing one they're both 24 seats. The content and marketing, I looked yesterday during the Patreon show. It is only got 1 seat left. And I want to say it's maybe on Thursday, but I forget. And then the other one is on Saturday night. And that one's maybe got 8 seats left, I think. So if you are going to Adepticon and you're interested in becoming a YouTuber, thank you, and you want to, or just whatever, then yeah, you should definitely take a look at those classes because they're fun. We've done them in the past. This is my 4th year doing them, 3rd or 4th year doing them, and yeah, they're a lot of fun, and they're always different too. That's the thing too. So if you've seen it in previous years, it's not going to be the same because I don't write anything down. So it's it's kind of random. No, it's not random, but it's on the cuff, and it's a lot of Q&A and that kind of stuff. Let's see here. What else have we got? Boop boop badoo. Let me see here. Any advice or experience with proxying in Kill Team? I have some 40K, but some irregular miniatures Space Marine types. Can you fit them into your team? If your opponent's cool with it and you want to proxy, as long as you can definitely explain, well, this is supposed to be this and this is supposed to be that, I don't have a problem with proxying. If you go to a tournament, it may become an issue, but amongst you and your friends, you can certainly proxy. Like if you found some models that you think are really cool and you want to use them as Adeptus Mechanicus, and they look very different than the normal Adeptus Mechanicus, and there's no reason you can't. So yeah, definitely. Jester says, "Are there Chaos Demon kill teams? I was reading on Reddit that they may be released later in the year since a new Demon Codex is coming out. There are currently not, and there's a possibility, I guess, that they will do that. I mean, it would make sense because it was one of the armies out of all the normal armies, demons were frankly one that has a codex that for some reason just did not show up in Kill Team. And I'm wondering if it's partially because there's many different types of demons. You've got Khorne demons, Slanesh demons, Nurgle demons. You've got the other one, Larry. What's the other god's name? Tzeentch. So yeah, you've got all these different types of demons, And so it would almost have to be like they would be adding 4 more armies as opposed to just 1 more army. They can't kind of do it that way. And so, yeah, maybe they will do it like that if there's a new codex coming out for Chaos Demons, then maybe they'll do it that way. That I was kind of surprised, honestly, that there wasn't. I think maybe it's also partially because a lot of demons, there's not a lot of shooting going on in demons, and I think there's more shooting in most of the armies in Kill Team, so it could have been that reason as well. So, yeah. Joshua Vandenberg says, Funko Pops equal desk ornaments that send out feelers to other geeks that you might work with. Yeah, no, that's definitely true. There was a last job I had previous to where I work now. There was a woman who she worked in marketing, and she had a Deadpool Funko Pop on her desk, and I had no idea that she was into that kind of stuff, and so we had some conversations, and it was nice. But yeah, otherwise, to look at her, I had no idea that she was into to Deadpool and that kind of stuff. So yeah, you're right. It is kind of a flag to some degree. Felix says, considering to start 30K, any recommendation about the rules and to compose a 30K army? I don't know really much of anything about 30K other than like I know like when it's supposed to take place and stuff, and I know that the majority of the models are all Forge World, so it's more expensive than normal 40K. If he's still in the chat, there's a guy in here named Jay Tick, and he knows a lot about 30K because he plays a lot of it. But I don't know a ton about it, frankly. I know there's a good podcast for it called Radio Free Istvan, I believe, and that might be something to look into. But yeah, definitely. Hey, Blake Gaskins, how you doing? We'll be seeing you in Vegas soon. Infinity is full proxy, right? I mean, I don't think so. There's plenty of Infinity models. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know a ton about Infinity. I've played a demo maybe 3 times, and every time it's just not quite struck me. And so that's why I still don't play. I've got plenty of friends that play. Sam plays. My friend Josh plays from Warstein Studio, but it's just never stuck with me for some reason. VJ Morph says, I think Demons will be a supplement for Kill Team like Rogue Trader was. Well, if they were to make a supplement that was like Inquisition versus Demons, that would make a lot of sense. That would be kind of cool. I think they should do that. Yeah, possibly with Inquisition, says VJ Morph. See, that I could see that. That would make sense. Julian says, what should new Kill Team players do about not being able to get the terrain sets? This has been a constant problem, and the terrain cards in the team boxes reference the Imperialis set. I mean, you can get... You can get the sets, you just can't buy the starter box with all of the stuff in it these days, unless you can find it. Hang on, click, there we go. So, yeah, like if you want that type of terrain, like I said, they've got the 35, the 50, the 75, and the $100 set. They also have a bunch of other stuff. But technically the trick is that Kill Team can be played with pretty much any kind of terrain. If you want to play with whatever the heck this thing is, and this landing pad, and the Shrine of the Aquila and all that kind of stuff, you don't have to play Kill Team with the new Kill Team terrain. You can play with whatever you want. You can play Kill Team. I mean, they were playing Kill Team on a bunch of home-built terrain at Nova Open. Really cool looking stuff. You can play it on pretty much anything you want. You don't have to get this stuff. This stuff is cool, but it sounds, unfortunately, like the starter box is probably not going to be made anymore, or maybe it may be re-released later on. I don't know. But for right now, if you want to get Kill Team terrain, then you would buy these Imperialis or whatever sets and go from there. Or, like I said, just use whatever the heck kind of terrain you want, because it's not terrain dependent. You can play on anything. I personally think you do want to have some 3-dimensionality to it. I think you want to have... Whoops, I'm sorry. I think you want to have some floors, some height, and that kind of stuff. Didn't realize I cut my face off again with the thing. So yeah, that's kind of where that's at. got to fix the chat window, and then this thing over here. Cool. So, yeah. What else have we got here? Sean Kavanaugh says, my 40K hoodie has attracted lots of other nerds to just come and talk to me. It's awesome. I mean, that's kind of the point. I have noticed that a lot of, for lack of a better term, nerd culture clothing is designed to kind of do that. People walk by and they see it and they don't get the reference, but other people who do, they're like, oh, I get that reference, and then they kind of know that the two of you are on the same page to some degree. So that makes sense, yeah. Tenkai says that Infinity has a whole lot of models, but is very proxy friendly. That is true, from what I understand. Yes, you have to obviously with your opponent understand what's going on and everything like that. But it definitely works out. Adam, any tips for taking the plunge into unscrewing unopened models that have been sitting on my shelf for months? Taking the plunge into unscrewing unopened models that have been sitting on my shelf for months. I would just say pick one that you think would be a lot of fun to paint, and then sit down and build it, and then prime it and paint it. And then once you're done with that, then go and look and see which other one. Like, if you need them for a game, like let's say you're playing, I don't know, whatever you're playing, and you need them to add them to your crew or to your army or to your squad or whatever, then look at it and go, what would help me most in my next game, and then work off of that and say, well, this one, and pick it and clip it and sand it and glue it and all that jazz. But if it's more of just a motivation thing, I just want to get stuff done off the shelf, then just look at stuff that you think would be most fun to paint. Or sometimes what I'll do is, because if you only pick the fun things to paint, then you've got all this stuff that just sits there forever and never gets painted because it doesn't look like it's going to be fun to paint. Then I like to take a look at it and say, well, how could I modify it? How could I kit bash it? How could I kind of tweak it from there, convert it, and then have a lot of fun to paint? That's also something you can kind of do, and then you're kind of learning a second skill, or at least flexing a second muscle, in your conversions and stuff like that. So definitely. Lucas Davidson says, going to LVO and Adepticon for the first time this year. Is there a can't miss area, vendor, restaurant for either? Event card is booked, but trying to make most of the downtime. I am also going to both of those. I don't know jack about Vegas, frankly. I went to LVO last year. It was my first time in Vegas. It was my first time at LVO. And I didn't leave the building really until, I got there Thursday and didn't leave the building until Saturday night. Now, there's a lot going on in the kind of Bali/Paris complex. So not leaving the building is fine. There's plenty of places to eat and drink and do whatever you want to do. But I didn't go out into Vegas and do a lot of Vegas-y stuff and everything like that. On Saturday night, there was a party, and I went to that, and we went drinking in a couple of places and stuff like that. But it wasn't more than a block or so from the place that we were staying, so it wasn't that big of a deal. So I'm not the guy to ask about Vegas. Honestly, Adepticon, I don't generally leave the building too much there either. I know there's a lot of people who like to go and get fancy pizzas and stuff like that because it's Chicago, but we generally bring food. And maybe I eat in the restaurant. There's a couple of restaurants in the big main building. Plus, there's concessions. But I've gone to there's a restaurant called Sam and Harry's or something like that. In that restaurant or in that complex at Adepticon, and it's nice. When you walk by, it's funny because especially at lunchtime, you walk by and it looks like it's closed because there's nobody in there. It's just that most of the gamers don't go in there because it looks too fancy. But it's actually not terrible as far as prices are concerned. It's a little bit more expensive than normal. I mean, it's more expensive than McDonald's, but it's really nice food. So I've gone there a couple of times. And then there's decent food in there's a bar that's also got decent food. There's stuff that you don't have to. The problem with Adepticon's kind of location is there's nothing very close by. You can't walk out very easily and go to a Potbelly. There is a Potbelly nearby, but I think you kind of need to drive because you have to go across a highway. So you shouldn't run across the highway, from what I've been told. So anyway, yeah, that's kind of that's kind of the thing. I should talk about the conventions that I am going to be going to. That's the point of today's episode, let's say. So let me go over here, and let me go over here, and let me go over here. All right, so I should just sit crooked like this the entire time. That'd be awesome. All right, so this is the first convention I'm going to, and I'm leaving in a couple of weeks. It is the Las Vegas Open. This will be my second year going to Las Vegas Open. Um, it happens in Las Vegas, strangely enough, at the Bally Casino Hotel thingy. The Paris is also attached to it. So actually, I'm staying in the Paris instead of the Bally this year just because I wanted to give it a try. And like I said, they're attached, so it's no big deal. Um, but yeah, this is a predominantly tournament convention, but they are starting to move more into hobby seminars and other kinds of things like that. So it'll be interesting to see. Like I taught a couple of hobby seminars last year, mainly the again 40K stuff, or sorry, uh, YouTube stuff. But and I'm doing that again this year, so we'll see how it goes. There's also a media panel. I believe this year it's on Thursday night. I think last year it was on Friday night, but there's a media panel that's being moderated by Blake and Ed from the Life After the Cover Save podcast. If you like comedy podcasts that are related to some degree to tabletop wargaming, then you should check them out. It's Life After the Cover Save. Look it up on your favorite podcast doohickey. But anyway, they kind of moderate it, and last year it was me and Carl from the Independent Characters. It was Wargamer Girl. It was, I think, Dave from Mini Wargaming, and there was a bunch of other people there. So it was a bunch of podcasters, video people, all that kind of stuff. There was a panel. People could talk and ask us questions. We could answer. And we're doing something like that again this year. I think it's going to be in a bigger room this year. And like I said, I believe it's Thursday evening. So I'm looking forward to that. But it's the Vegas Open has got a vendor area that's not too bad. It's not huge, but it's got a vendor area, and then it's got, like I said, tournaments. It's predominantly big 40K stuff and like Age of Sigmar stuff, but there's also bolt action tournaments. There's War Machine. There's probably Infinity. There's a lot of different stuff going on there. I was kind of surprised. Well, not surprised. I was impressed actually. Last year by the convention because I had never been, but I'd kind of heard of it, but I thought it was just basically a tournament. But it's actually a good deal more than that. So I'm looking forward to going this year. And we'll see. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a big go out and do all kinds of Vegas stuff kind of person, but we did a little bit of it last year. So we'll see if that turns out again this year. But yeah, that's the first convention I'm going to. And then after this is I'm going to... Well, there's a local convention I'm probably going to called Fire and Ice, which is in Manitowoc, Wisconsin. It's at the end of February. Excuse me. And that's just a general, little local tabletop gaming convention. It's maybe 500, 600 people. And I would probably know what it is. I believe it is Fire and Ice Convention.com. I am right. So again, like I said, it's the 22nd to the 24th, so it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday of February, and it's in Manitowoc, Wisconsin, which is eastern Wisconsin. So, here they say 400 gamers, but it seems like more. So yeah, they've got a whole bunch of stuff going on, and I'm going to hopefully maybe run some Song of Blades and Heroes while I'm there. So that's fun. Then, after this convention's done, then for Game 4, for my day job, we're going to the Gamma Trade Show in Reno, Nevada, which I will probably not see you at unless you are also a publisher or a retailer, because it's a trade show. It's not a gaming convention. It's designed for... Basically, the booths are all publishers or people who work, and do services and things like that for game companies. And then the people that are actually walking up and down the aisles at the show are pretty much all game store owners and employees. So again, like I said, it's a trade show, but it's very interesting. It's great for Game 4. It's one of the few conventions we're going to as in having a booth, because it's directly us working with the store owners and things like that. So. And it's at the Peppermill Resort in Reno, Nevada, it's interesting. There's even less to do kind of in Reno in comparison to, there's plenty less to do in Reno in comparison to Vegas, but the Peppermill is such a big, huge complex that we never really left. We went there last year and we were there for we just never left the building. At one point I walked outside just to get some fresh air or something, and then the door closed behind me and I couldn't get back in, and I had to walk like halfway around the giant complex to find a door so I could get back in. That was fun. So yeah, it's very self-contained in that situation. And then I'll be home for like a week, and then it's time for Adepticon, which is, as I've said multiple times before, my favorite convention. And this year at Adepticon, I will be teaching, again, like I said, 2 classes, one for YouTube, or both of them for YouTube, one for the more technical stuff, and one for the more, like, content and marketing and all that kind of jazz. Sam will be there teaching classes, which I think his are all sold out. One of my classes is almost sold out, and the other one's got about 8 seats left. I will also be doing... A couple of years ago, I did a video where I talked to a bunch of painters and I asked them all the same questions. I'm going to be doing something like that again this year. Actually, I'm hoping to do a couple of those. I want to do one with painters, and I'm kind of interested in maybe doing one talking to game designers and asking them questions, like the same questions, and seeing what the answers look like. I'm also going to be doing some video content working with Adepticon. To talk to a bunch of the hobby seminar teachers, for lack of a better term, and we're going to be talking. I want to do some video content for them that's kind of promotional and stuff like that. And I've been talking a little bit with the guy who runs the hobby seminar area, and we're going to be doing some videos that way. So yeah, Adepticon's going to be busy, but I'm really looking forward to it. I will probably have some sort of meetup potentially. Usually when I do, some people show up and it's fine, but I think that sometimes the scheduling just becomes difficult because people are playing in tournaments and stuff like that. I get that. So let's see. So then Adepticon that's in March. I don't think I'm going anywhere in April. I don't think so. I think April is a month off, so that's cool. May is mostly a month off. But there is a convention in Milwaukee that I might be going to. I don't remember. But there's also another trade show. There's a distributor based out of Madison, Wisconsin called ACD. And so stores in America get their stuff generally from distributors for the most part. And so they have a trade show. And again, it's all publishers are the booths, and then it's store owners are the people walking around. And that's another trade show that we go to, because then we're interfacing directly with store owners for Game 4. And so we're planning on going to that again. We went last year, and it worked out quite nicely. And then starts June. So that's like late May, and then immediately we go into June, and June we go into TMX, which is the Tabletop Minions Expo here in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, which I'll go look at the website, but as I mentioned earlier, it's not been updated yet. So minions.org/TMX, and it looks roughly like that, and I really needed a haircut in that photo. So this is a convention to basically, there's a lot of stuff going on. People come and run games, and then you get to play all kinds of games maybe you haven't played before, whether they're homebrew or just, the non-normal stuff. There's no tournaments. There's none of that stuff. It's all demos and expo. That's why it's an expo. So yeah, that's coming up. This says it's coming up June 9th and 10th, but that's for 2018. It's coming up June 8th and 9th, 2019. And like I said, I'm hoping to update this website. I have to update this graphic and some other stuff like that, but I'm going to update it probably tonight. So we got that going for us, which is lovely. Immediately after this, I am then going to Origins in Columbus, Ohio. Origins Game Fair? ? Yes. Okay. So that's June 12th to the 16th. So it's pretty much right after TMX. And this one's, again, a general gaming convention. And it is, so it's not just wargaming like Adepticon or LVO or anything like that. It's normal tabletop gaming. So there's some wargaming, but not very much. This convention's probably around 20,000 people. And I've been talking to, like, Vallejo is going to have a big booth there again this year. Last year they had like this kind of painting sort of thing. Like it was a class you could pay, and then they would give you one of those WizKids beholders, and then you would sit there and paint while Jason from Realmsmith TV was painting, and then he would be like, well, then we're going to do this. And then he always had like a guest and that would paint with them. And I got to be the guest at one point, one morning. It was like Friday morning from like 10 to noon or something like that. And so we're going to probably do that again this year. So that'll be kind of interesting. That was a lot of fun, just kind of talking with people in the audience and talking with Jason while we painted. And it was quick, too. I mean, 2 hours to paint a beholder is very fast. And it's not my best work, but it's pretty good for 2 hours, honestly. So, but yeah, so I'm going to that again. Origins is an interesting convention. It's nicely done. Definitely, it's probably better if you're only into wargaming. It's not great, but if you're into wargaming and RPG or wargaming and board gaming or something like that, then it's actually a really great convention. As is, say, Gen Con. I may have some other travel. It's still not quite completely solid yet, but there's going to be maybe some travel potentially the next week after Origins, which I'll talk more about once it's been nailed down. I can't really talk about it right now. And then July is mostly open, which is pretty nice, actually. And then August right away is it's this convention. It's not really big. It's called Gen Con. And it's August 1st to 4th this year in Indianapolis. It's the best 4 days in gaming, allegedly. And it is big. It is 60,000 plus people. And it is monstrous. I'm going again with a media badge. I'm hoping to actually be teaching some seminars again this year, which is my first time. I applied, and I don't know if I haven't got any response yet. But I to be fair, I also didn't know that they already approved my media badge. I didn't get an email, so I need to log in and check. But yeah, so Gen Con's a great convention again, specifically if you're into more than just wargaming. If you're into just wargaming, of the 4 main genres of tabletop gaming, it's the least represented there. But because there's so many people, there's still stuff to see and still stuff to do. But if you're into, say, if you're a board gamer and a wargamer, or like I said, an RPG, or even like a CCG and a wargamer, it's a great convention if you can get there. It's very difficult to get hotel rooms downtown because there's so many people that are vying for them. It's expensive to some degree, like the actual 4-day badge is expensive. But if you can get there, it is a pretty good convention. You know, again, like I said, you do probably want to be more than interested in just wargaming. If you're interested in just wargaming, I would tell you to put all your eggs into probably the Adepticon basket. But if you like stuff beyond wargaming, board gaming, RPGs, CCGs, whatever, then try to make it to Gen Con at some point. It's a hoot. Unless you don't like having lots and lots and lots of people around. Like if you've got, you know, like that, then don't, because there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people. After Gen Con is, let's see, so that's August. Currently, I don't think I have anything happening in September that I can think of. No, I take that back. No, I'm sorry. The Nova Open is actually technically in August and September, so it's on the other end of the month. Nova Open. I don't know what here it is. NovaOpen.com. Well, that makes sense. So it's the 10th anniversary for Nova Open. Nova Open is just, again, a war games only, predominantly. There's a little bit of board gaming that goes on in one room, but otherwise it's pretty much war gaming. It's a lot like Adepticon in that there's big tournaments, but there's also demos, and there's hobby seminars, and they're really pushing the hobby seminars more and that kind of stuff at Nova. Last year was my first year at Nova. It's in the D.C. area. It's technically the Northern Virginia Open, and it's just right. It's technically Northern Virginia. It's Crystal City, Arlington, I guess, area, but I think I was like 4 miles from the White House. So the borders are all screwy there. Anyway, it's August 29th to September 1st, so straddles the end of the month and the beginning of the month for September. Great convention. I'm going to be doing seminars here as well, although this time, this is going to be the first convention that I ever go to where I'm going to be doing some painting seminars. I had some conversations with the people who run Nova Open, and they said that what they wanted to talk to me about was they wanted to see, because Nova Open, like a lot of other conventions, are a lot more paint conscious, and Nova Open is a little bit less paint conscious as far as the tournaments are concerned. So they've got people who come and play who maybe don't paint very well, or maybe don't, because it's not like a score that they necessarily use in the overall. So they said, we know that there are more people out there who would like to learn how to paint faster, how to cut some corners, how to do that kind of stuff. And we know you've been talking about that in the channel lately. And so after talking back and forth with a couple of the people, I'm going to teach 2 classes at Nova Open about basically painting quickly, painting to a tabletop standard quickly, and that kind of stuff. And then I'm going to teach 1 class that's going to be basically about YouTube, and it's going to be like my other 2 classes sort of squished together. So that'll be interesting. I've never really taught a painting class at a seminar before, or at a tournament or a convention before, so that's going to be kind of cool. I'm looking forward to that. I think that's about it right now. There will probably be some other conventions that will crop up, or some other things that will happen. If I can get myself, when I get myself the, what do you call it, the passport, maybe there's a trip overseas. I'd love to. I would. My wife would like to go as well, because she hasn't been to England since she was in college. So something like that I think would be kind of cool too. I'd like to see Warhammer World and all that, but we'll see how that goes. Right now, there's no plans, but it's something I'd like to hope to be able to do. All right, so enough of that shenanigans, and hopefully there are people that are still watching the show. Looks like a couple, so that's good. Yeah, so that's where things are going there. It's a lot of travel, but I don't know. I never used to be a traveler, and I'm a little bit more interested in it now these days. And it's just good to go to these conventions. Honestly, one of the reasons I go is partially because I want to go and meet people. I want to go and meet people who like the show and talk to those types of people. And I've had a lot of really interesting interactions with a lot of folks at these conventions that have been really great. I really, a lot of people want to say thank you. A lot of people want a picture, that kind of stuff, and that's really cool. But on the other hand is also, at least for me, some of these conventions, especially the big ones, are good like business contacts. Like Gen Con, it's always like, hey, let's get together and meet at Gen Con. Some sort of, if I'm talking to a manufacturer or somebody like that, or they want to show me some new stuff and things like that. And that's helpful as well, having actual interaction face to face with a lot of these kind of folks. So as a business thing, it's kind of a good idea, and as talking to actual viewers and things like that, I enjoy that quite a bit too. So, yeah, that's kind of where that's at right now. All right, let's get back to the chat and see what's going on. Cloudy says, hey there, everyone. I have a question. Do you suggest that a beginner should learn the basic color theory and start applying it, or do you think it's unnecessary? Hope someone can help me with this. So I did a video a couple of years back about color theory. There are some basics that you can learn from that video that can be helpful. I also did a video back in 2016 at Adepticon that I just mentioned before, where I talked to, I think it was 7 different painters, and I asked them all the same 6 questions. One of the questions was basically, is color theory important? And if you go and watch that video, it's funny because some of them are like, oh, absolutely, and other ones are like, no, not really. So it depends, as do most things in life. I personally think that you should learn some because, like, I'm working on these Iron Skulls orcs. Knowing that the opposite color to green, the orc skin, is red, helps me to understand that if I want one, because the opposite colors are called complementary colors. The opposite colors are green and red, purple and yellow, and blue and orange. So if you have a predominantly blue character for some reason, and you really want them to stand out from, let's say, the base that they're standing on, then you want the base color to maybe be of kind of an orange kind of sand color, maybe, because then that orange sand color versus the blue will cause a visual reaction that will, for lack of a better word, make the blue hopefully pop. Now, there are levels, and I learned this in college, that like green and red, when you make them exactly the same amount, then neither of them will overtake the other one. Whereas purple and yellow, you have to have a lot of purple and a little bit of yellow for them to equalize. And then for blue and orange, I think it's predominantly more blue. It's like 2/3. If you had like a line that was this long, 2/3 of it should be blue and 1/3 of it should be orange, and then they won't, make the other one jump too much. So yeah, it's but knowing those colors, because there's times when you're like, oh, I paint some orcs and I'm going to put them on some like a blue base, and you're like, well, that looks weird. Well, it's because you've got a cool color and a cool color. You've got, you know, if you want to make them kind of like, if you want to make the green look cool, one of the reasons that you see like the orcs with the red armor is because it makes their skin look a lot more green. There's a lot of color theory to that. Like when you go to the grocery store and you buy strawberries or raspberries at the grocery store, and they come in that little green plastic basket. Well, the reason they come in the green plastic basket is because it makes the red look more red. If they made that plastic basket out of, say, black plastic or blue plastic or green plastic or red plastic, it would make the berries look less red. If you put red berries in a red plastic basket, it wouldn't work. But you put them in the green plastic basket, it's the opposite color. That kind of stuff. They don't do it so much anymore, but you used to sometimes buy bananas, and they would come with like this fiberboard like tray, and then the bananas would be on there, and they used to wrap them in saran wrap. They don't do that anymore. They just put them on a thing. But I remember when I was a kid seeing those in the grocery stores, and those kind of fiberboard little trays that they put them in and saran wrapped them into them, they were purple. Why were they purple? Because that's the opposite color of yellow, and it makes the bananas look more yellow. It was that kind of stuff. So learning some color theory, you don't have to be a genius in it, but if you learn a little bit of it at least, it can help you identify what colors will cause other colors to stand out more, which colors will cause other colors to be more muted, that kind of stuff. It's not a bad thing to look into. At the very least, watch the video that I did a couple years back about color theory, and that should hopefully help. Thanos73 says, I will be at Nova this year. Very excited. It's a very cool convention. Last year was my first year, and I thought it was pretty cool. Hey, life after the cover save. Would Gamma be a good visit for a content creator? Would the Gamma trade show, would it be a good visit for a content creator? Well, the trick is that from what I know, you guys are predominantly wargaming, and there's, again, not a ton of wargaming there. It's a lot of board games, because that's like the biggest portion of the main 4 genres of tabletop gaming. You've got RPGs, board games, war games, and collectible card games. So most everything fits into those 4. I can say that because that's the 4 main kind of categories that we have for the on Game 4, the little filters. Like if you want to looking at all the events in Game 4 and you don't care about CCGs because you don't play Magic or whatever, you can push a little button to make it so the CCGs disappear, and then you only see everything else. So yeah, those are the main 4. Gamma, I mean, if you want to make the trip to Reno, and if you can get them to actually answer you and get you a pass, like a media pass, it might be a fun time to try out. I can tell you that the company that runs it, the organization, for lack of a better word, because I think they're not for profit, Gamma, not great at responding to emails or much of anything else. So, Gamma also runs Origins. So I wanted to run I wanted to run seminars at Origins, and their website's terrible for Origins. Like, once it gets closer to Origins and you want to see the event list, they send you to a link where you can download a Excel document, and then you can open it up yourself and take a look at it. Like, you can't look on the website to see the stuff. They're just like, hey, well, just download this Excel. It's got all the stuff on it. Really? So anyway, if you can make it work, it might be cool. But there's not a lot of wargaming that's happening at Gamma. The main reason we're going to Gamma is because, like I said, the people who are walking it up and down the aisles are store owners. So that's why we go and have a booth there, because we want to talk to store owners and get them on board for Game 4. As a content creator, if you were like worked for Dice Tower or something like that, that would make a lot of sense, because I'm pretty sure they have a booth there, or they used to. Or at least they had a present. They had like a hotel room upstairs, and they would do interviews and things like that. But I don't think they do it anymore. I'm not sure. Yeah, Gamma's a bit of a mess. Let's just say that. So I don't know. If you just wanted to go to Reno and hang out in Reno, it's kind of cool. Last year it was during the March Madness, so that was a little like every time you would leave one of the seminars and stuff, there would be just tons of people like screaming at televisions with basketball on. So that was kind of weird. But other than that, it was fine. Let me see here. What do we got? else? Let's see here. What do you think about the massive influx of GW lore-based video games in the last years? It seems like they've been selling those licenses like candy. Yeah, I mean, they've been doing a lot of it, and it makes sense because it spreads the word, for lack of a better term. I can't tell you the number of people that I've talked to. I can't tell you the number of people that I've talked to who've said, like, I've bumped into like at Adepticon, who are like, I started getting into tabletop wargaming because I played Dawn of War, or whatever. Insert video game here, but Dawn of War was a big one. So I know that it does convert. At the very least, it gets it out there. I talked about a video about a month back, excuse me, about how I'd like to see a big like Hollywood movie. That's more likely as the lore gets spread out more to more and more people. So video games, there's a lot of people who are like, oh, this video game looks cool, and they learn about Space Marines and Eldar and Tau and all that kind of junk. And then some of them, every once in a while, actually flip over and decide to start, playing the actual tabletop. So it makes sense. Now, I don't know about like the whole situation with like the mobile games. I don't know that I've never had anyone walk up to me and go, I played that game where you fling grots into a bucket on my phone, and now I play orcs, in 40K. I've never run into anyone who said that, but it's still, I'm sure it probably helps to some degree. I would like to see some good games. Like I said, I would love to see, I'd love to see something that was like Battlefield, but with Space Marines and crap like that. I think that'd be kind of cool. Let's see. Jarrett says, not to sound too creepy, but what con should I attend if I wanted to have the greatest chance of meeting you? I feel like Adepticon is massive, and I'd probably get lost in the shuffle. Well, I mean, Adepticon's not that massive. It's 5,000 people, but like Gen Con is 60,000 people, so that's actually massive. I mean, Nova, Adepticon. To be honest, even Gen Con, like I generally do a meetup at Gen Con. It's usually at the Potbelly Sandwich place, which is a couple blocks away. So if you just make the meetup, then there you go. But yeah, I mean, there's options. None of, I mean, if you were only just trying to bump into me at some point, Gen Con would be not the place to do it because it's so huge. But at smaller conventions, it's considerably easier, I think. Paul Thompson says, any chance we can get Game 4 to have search by game function? That's in the roadmap to some degree. We want to have search, and then that would be a big part of it. But one of the issues is we would like to have search, but we want it to be sort of context sensitive. So if you're in the looking for players section and you do search, it would search the looking for players stuff first with the keyword that you were searching for. But then it would also hit, let's say, game events and then maybe stores or whatever like that. But if you were in the game events area, it should check there first. And so it's a bit further down the road. We've got other stuff that's in the way currently as far as other features, but it's definitely on our roadmap. Right now we're doing we're working on a couple of projects. They're new features that should be dropping. One of them is definitely dropping before we go to Gamma. Maybe two of them are dropping before we go to Gamma. I can say probably at least one of the next features that's coming out is we're going to be having soon a convention list, so that you'd be able to use Game 4 to find local conventions and gaming conventions near you. And local gaming conventions will be able to put themselves into the list so that they can hopefully get more people to show up to their conventions and stuff like that. So that's coming soon. Like it's mostly done. I think we're tweaking on the Android version, but that's where that's at. So it's coming quite soon. Matthew Steers is correct. If you really want to stalk Adam, then you go to TMX, because yeah, that's like last year we had like 65 people. So it's predominantly one room. So that should be fine. Let's see. Martin the Warrior says, has anyone got any idea when the next Golden Demon competition is? Golden Demons, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know they're only really done at Warhammer World now. They used to have them at the games days that they did all over the place, and now they pretty much are only just Warhammer World, so I don't know. DJ says, I can't believe I caught your show live. Greetings from Hampshire in the UK. It's windy and horrible. Big fan of your videos and are big fan. Your videos are great and very helpful. Thank you for your work, sir. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, let's see here. Hawk the Slayer says, "Hey Adam, have you ever attended a historical miniatures gaming convention such as Historicon, Cold Wars, or Fall In?" There's a little tiny convention in Appleton, Wisconsin, which is like a city over from me, and that is called TundraCon, which they actually just had at the beginning of January. I didn't go this year because I had something else going on, but I did go last year. Small, we're talking maybe 100 people, but it's a historical convention, and it was interesting. I mean, it was cool. There was like a big, huge, kind of like homebrew modified version of Memoir 44. There was plenty of bolt action. There was a guy running a big, like, more medieval kind of thing with lots of, horses and cavalry and flags and stuff like that, and that was pretty cool. There was some other smaller scale, like 6mm type stuff. Randomly, there was some Star Wars X-Wing, which I thought was interesting because I thought it was mostly historical, but I don't think it's a hard and fast rule. I think that just most of the people who run that convention are into historical, but one guy set up some X-Wings, so, but yeah, that's kind of where that's at. Yeah, but it was interesting. I haven't gone to. I know there's a couple in Illinois that I would kind of like to check out and see, but I haven't really gotten the chance. It's frequently a scheduling thing, but I would kind of like to try that out. Let's see what else. Any thoughts on? Let's see here. Corvus Games Durain says, "Any thoughts on paint schemes for a generic sci-fi landing pad model?" I would probably say, I don't know. I mean, I like to think about, like, when you look at, like, actual military stuff. I know that there's some people who will say, well, this stuff is all fantastical, so it shouldn't look like actual military stuff. If you're talking about sci-fi, if you're talking about, whatever. If you're painting actual historical things, then it should probably look more like actual, military stuff. But when you're painting like a sci-fi landing pad, you could paint it up crazy looking in some fashion and put lots of, like, words on it and things like that in crazy sci-fi fonts and stuff like that. But then, I don't know. I would honestly, if I was thinking about it from the idea of that this is an actual military, it depends on the game. Like, if it's 40K, technically most of those armors should all be painted kind of like whatever color the planet is, you know what I mean? So that they're at least slightly camouflage. But 40K, it's a whole kind of heraldry thing and all that kind of stuff, and I get that. I don't know. If I was painting a landing pad for the sci-fi game, but it wasn't something fantastical like 40K, but something a little bit more real, I guess, in sci-fi, I would probably go with either like some sort of olive drab or gray. Something about like you wouldn't think they would paint it red. You know what I mean? Like, why would you paint something like that red? Unless you're trying to guess, maybe you could paint it bright orange or bright yellow because you're trying to get, the airplanes to land on it and they want to be able to see it from the sky. I guess there's that. I was watching something last night. What were my wife and I watching? Oh, we were watching the second season of The Punisher, which is... But at one point, they walked past... I forget why, but they walked past a Jersey barrier. And normally Jersey barriers, if you're familiar with those, are just concrete, and unpainted and whatever. But they walked past one that was painted white with yellow stripes. And I was like... I should paint some Jersey barriers that look like that. That would be kind of cool. And then dab, for like, not like normally I would dab with a sponge for rust effects, but in this situation I would dab with a gray so it would look like chipped paint, and then you would see the gray concrete underneath. And I was like looking at that last night. I was thinking about it. I'm like, that'd be kind of cool. But you don't normally see brightly painted stuff like that. But if it's supposed to really be, like, hey, do not hit this, then it makes more sense. Or, hey, land here, it also makes sense. So I guess I don't have a good answer, frankly. Let's see here. Dustin Nestoff said, when you started this channel, did you think it was going to be so big? Not particularly. I mean, I had been working for Beasts of War and I was like their U.S. correspondent, so I was going to Gen Con and Adepticon and stuff like that. And kind of like what Dawn and Gianna do now for Beasts of War. And I was doing that and then I decided I wanted to start my own channel because I wanted to learn editing and video stuff and all that stuff. So I thought, well, this would be a good place to do it. And then I really kind of frankly half-assed it for a couple of years, like good 2.5 years. I did not have a steady schedule. 2 weeks in between, 3 weeks in between, 4 weeks in between videos, sometimes more. And it took about 2.5 years of doing it that way to eventually finally hit 10,000, which was surprising that I got there even as quickly as I did to some degree, with such a erratic schedule. And then when I hit 10,000, I thought, I should try to maybe think about actually putting more effort into this and doing stuff like that. And I had been reading a bunch of articles, and one of them talked about how consistency is really key. So I decided that's when I was going to start doing. This was October, nearly right around Halloween, 2015, and that's when I decided I was going to start doing every Friday, and I haven't missed one since. So it's been over 3 years, and that consistency is really helpful. So yeah, I didn't think it was going to get that big, but I'm very glad to have kind of got where we're at this point, and I'm glad that the community is as cool as it is, and I'm glad to keep hopefully teaching people about wargaming and getting people into, putting paint on plastic and things like that. So yeah. Aberrant says, have you tried the new version of Age of Sigmar Skirmish from White Dwarf? I haven't, because my local shop doesn't seem to have that particular issue of White Dwarf yet. I'm going to be a little bummed if the only place to get it is in that White Dwarf. I won't be surprised, but I'll be a little bummed. So I'm going to have to reach out to him again and go, did you guys ever get that? Because they usually get the White Dwarfs, but they did get the one recently where it had rules for using a giant in Shadespire, like a Gargant or whatever. And so I bought that one, and it was really cool, and it came like in this kind of cardboard envelope, and the magazine was in there, and there was a bunch of cards, and some of the cards were in there for the Gargant and all that kind of stuff, and the cards were in like French. There was some sort of mishap, and the cards were the wrong language. Like, it was, everything else in there was English, and the cards were in French. So the one thing that I bought that one for, it was in the wrong language. So I was like, ugh. Yeah, so I don't know. I do want to try it out, though, because I own the first Skirmish. Like, it was just like a $10 or $15 thin little book, and I own that, and I'd like to try this new one. We'll see how it works out. Any suggestions for someone focusing on terrain building techniques and ideas? I tend to get shunned at model railroading cons when they learn that I'm a gamer. Oh, that's a bummer. I wonder why they would do that. I guess model railroading is a much finer. I think they spend a lot more time on a house. Also, the house is never usually ruined. You know what I mean? Like, in war games, there's a lot of ruins. And things have a tendency to be kind of beefier, chunkier, a little bit more like reinforced bunkers that have been partially destroyed, that kind of stuff. Whereas in railroad modeling, it's all about the details, and everything is very perfectly to scale and all that kind of stuff. So I can see that to some degree, but I think there's something that can be learned definitely from railroad modeling, and like that, just that extra level of detail and the embellishments and stuff that you see on the outside of the buildings, bringing some of that to regular wargaming terrain makes the wargaming terrain just look that much better. So yeah, that's a good question. But I don't really... honestly, my suggestion for someone focusing on terrain building ideas and techniques is to try to take that from the scale modeling, take the extra embellishments. I did a video, a live show, I don't know, a month or two ago, after Valhalla, when I talked about all the cool terrain that was at Valhalla, and I had lots of cool pictures of the terrain. If you go back and watch that live show, I talked a lot about this amazing terrain they have at Valhalla, but just all the cool, like, the wiring on the outside of the buildings and all the extra level of detail that just really makes the home-built terrain really look amazing. Frankly, even store-bought terrain, like Like you never see, almost never see store-bought terrain, let's say like the GW plastic buildings and stuff like that, that have like wiring hanging off of them. You know what I mean? But you could easily just with some wire and some glue hang some wiring off of them, and make them look like someone's been stringing wire from this window to that window because they need to power their hair dryer or whatever it is you need in the future. So yeah. What else have we got here? JP Got Rocket says that model railroaders could learn a lot from us. Yeah, I mean, I suppose so to some degree. I don't know what they use for paint these days. I don't know if model railroaders are using a lot of acrylics. I know when I first got into model like cars and planes when I was a kid, it was all those weird little square glass bottles of Testors enamels, which now if I went back, I do wonder if I would be much better with acrylic paints, painting cars and stuff like that. Obviously, you'd have to then gloss varnish at the end if you wanted a car to look like a real shiny hot rod or something like that. But for the airplanes and stuff like that, I don't know that you would need to make them shiny per se, unless it's a metallic plane, it's like a polished aluminum bomber from World War II. Well, then yeah, but yeah, I don't know. Julian Wolf also says, in the model railroading community here, they are anti-negativity in the things being modeled. Ruined buildings and graffiti are very controversial. Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I think that one of the things, like, I've almost never seen a train board, like a railroad board, going through like a war-torn city. It's always very pastoral, very idealistic, like it's people walking around hand in hand and stuff as the trains go by, and sitting on park benches, when you see the little people that they sell for like different scale, like like the little people that you're going to put on your board just kind of walking around doing stuff, they never show someone like blown in half or someone laying on the ground dead or anything like that. It's always people sitting on park benches reading newspapers and fishing and junk like that. So I get that. I understand why they would be like, don't put graffiti on stuff and whatever. But to be fair, it's your train board. If you want to do it that way, knock yourself out. I think it'd be kind of interesting to see a train going through like a place that's on fire. I don't know, that'd be kind of interesting. So yeah, don't let the haters get you down. I think someone said that earlier, higher up in the chat. What else have we got? My local train hobby store is pretty cool to me when I go in, says Torch. The old guy who owns it knows I'm making wargaming trade, but he still likes to sell me stuff, so it's all good. Yeah, that's the thing, too. Like, the store owner should never be like, get out of here, you're trying to make wargaming terrain, because they'd be like, why would I tell a potential, customer to go away? I have bought from railroad type store like that. I've bought plasticard because they will frequently sell plasticard with textures, like shingles or diamond plate, that kind of stuff. I've bought some diamond plate, scale model diamond plate plasticard, and girders, like I-beams and stuff like that are scale, and all that. So yeah, there's plenty of cool things to use at the railroad store or whatever that you can use in your terrain for wargaming. Someone says Railhammer 40K. Alexander says Train of Sigmar. There you go. I know that I have played on boards. I think at a Gen Con, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, I was playing Malifaux on boards that had train cars on them, because Malifaux being kind of a mixture sort of like Old West with some steampunk, like Malifaux is supposed to take place in the 1800s or the very early 1900s. I forget exactly. But if you look at the lore, it's alternate history. It's not like a totally different war. I mean, Malifaux, where Malifaux is, the city, that's actually a different dimension. And there's like a rip in our dimension so that we can go over there, and then there's problems. But yeah, it's an alternate history timeline, and it's supposed to be, I want to say, sometimes 1800s, very early 1900s. So there are trains and things like that. Theodore says, would you buy a Warhammer 40k train set if GW made one? Probably not. I mean, not like an electric train set that just went around in circles or whatever, and there was like some Space Marine standing on it or whatever. If they made like a grav train or like a crashed grav train model that was pretty cool that you could put together and use as a piece of terrain on your board, that might be kind of neat, but I don't know that I'd buy an actual train set that was electric and all that jazz. Let me see here. Saber's Edge 68 says, I had a model shop owner throw me out of the store because I was buying a bunch of 72nd scale or 172nd scale tanks for World War II gaming, saying wargamers don't shop here. I think he was a bit off kilter generally, though. Well, yeah, I would say so. If a customer or if a store owner is like, well, you're buying it for the wrong stuff, who cares? They're buying it. Why would you? That's ridiculous. Yeah, that's just an old crotchety person who should probably not be in business anymore, in my opinion. Just FYI. Alexander says, I always wanted to make a board that was a mixed fantasy and sci-fi where there was a huge portal between two worlds. I mean, honestly, that would be perfect for Malifaux. Like, the whole story behind Malifaux, in a real quick nutshell, is that magic had started to disappear. And so magicians were like, hey, magic's not working anymore, and that's problematic. So a whole bunch of them got together and did this big ritual which was supposed to kickstart magic, and instead what it did is it exploded and killed most of the magicians, but it ripped a hole in reality, I guess. And so they sent people through the hole, and they found this city that was empty called Malifaux. They eventually figured out that's what it was called. And so that's kind of what the game is about. And on the other side, in Malifaux, they found these glowing green stones here and there, and they're called soul stones. At least that's what they call them, the people who go over there from Earth. And they're kind of like a magic battery. So there's like a lot of mining of these and trying to bring them back and all that stuff. But there are people who do live over there in Malifaux who've been hiding, called the Neverborn, and there's a whole thing and it's stuff. And there's lots of different factions in the game, and it's cool. But it's like I said, it's alternate history where like magic had never gone away or whatever, but it was starting to kind of crap out, and then these guys tried to kickstart it and all died. So yeah. Excuse me. My nose is kind of all stuffed up again. Michael Strange says, I got the stink eye last night in Barnes & Noble when I dared to suggest that White Dwarf magazine should be in the hobby section. It was hiding in the entertainment section. Like by like Entertainment Weekly and like People magazine, because that's kind of funny, frankly, if it is. But yeah, it should be probably in the hobby section. I would just assume anyone would get the stink eye going into Barnes and Noble anyway, because I would think that they're probably just not happy about being in a bookstore these days, because it's a difficult business. You know what I mean? Like, I would just think that you would be bummed quite a bit. I don't know. Theodore asks, do you think an augmented reality app for 40k would be successful? Like special effects for attack actions or automatic dice rolls? I made a video about augmented reality a while back that was pretty popular. I like the concept. Right now, the problem with augmented reality is that you have to do this. So you have to look through your phone to make the augmented reality work, and the augmented reality is only happening in this little window that you're, looking through in your phone. Eventually, we're going to have, hopefully, some sort of glasses, and not goggles, because that's virtual reality when you can't see what's going on around you, and everything's been replaced by what you see in the screen. Augmented reality, for those of you who don't know, is you can still see all the stuff around you, but there's stuff overlaid. Okay? So the augmented reality like app right now out there it's a game called The Machines is pretty cool. And what it is it's kind of almost like a miniatures game, and you're like you're looking through your phone though at the table, but you can see like the stuff around you, the walls and the chairs and all that junk. But then it looks like there's a virtual tabletop. Like there looks like there's cool terrain and there's vehicles flying around and monsters and crap and all kinds of stuff. But you can only see it through the phone. Being able to see that through your glasses, but still be able to see the refrigerator and get yourself a soda and still be able to see whether it's dark outside or not and that kind of stuff. That's when I think augmented reality will really start to kind of take off, but we're not there yet. There's a company called Magic Leap that's done some pretty good work to get there, but one of the biggest problems with any kind of augmented reality, and the two big ones right now are Magic Leap and Microsoft's HoloLens, is that the peripheral view is terrible. So like, yeah, it's augmented reality, but only here. So anything that you see, there's like a line, and then everything stops, and that's when they can make that kind of spread out more. Then all of a sudden, it will be a total game changer. And if they can make it lightweight in a pair of glasses, it will be a total game changer. Because right now the HoloLens looks, you look like a doofus wearing it. I've worn it. If you go look at my, well, I was going to say I've got a picture on my Instagram, but it's my personal Instagram. Yeah, it's crazy looking. So maybe eventually it'll happen. We'll see. Mojo Omo says, hey, tuning in from the UK and about to watch, or about to batch paint Ungors. I've got to do that myself. Wish me luck. Keep up the good work. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I've got a bunch of Ungors that, or no, not Ungors. Are they Ungors? The ones with the bows. Ungor Raiders? I think I've got some of those that I want to add eventually to my Chaos Soup Age of Sigmar army. And I bought, they came in the white box. You know, like, yeah, I had to order them direct because you can't get them anywhere else. So you had to order them direct from GW. They got that little icon now on the order that says, no, this, you can only order this from the web store. And yeah. So anyway, I've got some of those guys that need to be painted so they can be added to my army. Let me see here. What else have we got? Hey, Adam, how many hours did your IG kill team take total, ballpark? I mean, not a ton, because I painted them really quickly. That's a video that I need to make soon, too, is how to quick paint Imperial Guard. I pretty much primed them with a kind of sand color primer from Krylon. I forget if it's sand or the other one. There's the two kind of tan colors. I used the lighter one of them. And primed them all with that from Krylon, the camouflage line. And then I just did like a sepia wash on pretty much everything. And then I painted the helmet and like some of the chest plate stuff in the green color. And I did the boots in like black or brown, I forget exactly. There's still little spats above the boots, which I think I did also in green. Painted the hands, you know, like flesh tone. Painted the faces flesh tone. Painted the guns, again, green. It was a relatively quick process, but not like, you know, it wasn't like it was 2 hours, because there's a bunch of them. I should probably set them all up and so you guys can see them, but there's, let's see, between the scions, there's like at least 5 or 6 scions in that thing, and then probably another almost dozen Imperial Guard. That's a good question. I generally don't keep track. I've been keeping track with these Iron Skulls boys that I'm doing for the Hobby Progress vlog, because I want to be able to let people know, and it took me this long at the end. But in general, I don't frequently keep track. But they did go pretty quickly, because I did pretty much just use a very simple, quick kind of process for painting them. And they're not hard to do that way, so. Excuse me. Let me see. What else have we got here? James says, Uncle Adam, I actually haven't made the transition from Zombicide Black Plague to tabletop gaming. Well, I mean, you know, Zombicide Black Plague is tabletop gaming. It's, you know, anything that you play on a tabletop, like role-playing games or tabletop gaming. Tabletop wargaming, that's a slightly different story. Anyway, like it's Uncle Adam, I haven't quite made the transition from Zombicide Black Plague to tabletop gaming, but I'm interested. What would be a good game to try that I can drag friends into? Honestly, I think that a good game to try, first of all, Black Plague, Zombicide Black Plague is a good game to be able to do that, because if you've got the stuff and you can be like, hey, check this out. But if you want your friends to be able to get into something, you might think about like Shadespire, Night Vault, that kind of stuff. So Warhammer Underworlds is what it's called. And there's the original set was called Shadespire, and then there's several add-ons to that, and then there's Night Vault is the new set. They're compatible. You can play back and forth with them, so you could take like an army that was like the skeletons, the Sepulchral Guard that was released with Shadespire. You could play them against the Zarbags, Gits. I think I have, yeah. These guys here. And these guys are from Night Vault, but they're compatible. Anyway, so it's a fantasy-style game, but it's played on a hex board, and you have cards, so you have a deck that you're sort of building, so it's got some deck building to it, and it's got a little bit of board gamey kindness to it, but it's also got models. The models are quick and simple to build, and they come in colored plastic. I don't remember what color plastic these guys come in, but they do come in colored plastic. But you can also paint them and that kind of stuff. So if you bought one of the 2 starters, whether it's Shadespire or whether it's Night Vault, you then get 2 armies in there. So if you build and put those 2 armies together, at the very least, you can play against your friends and be like, hey, you play these guys, I'll play these guys. And you've already got that going on. And you've got all the cards you need and the dice and all that jazz. So it's not a bad place to start, which is why it's been selling so well, I think. Yeah, that's definitely, I think, a way that I would go if you were trying to go from something like Black Plague and you wanted to get your friends into it. And because the thing is that if your friends are like, that's cool, I want to start playing that as well, they've got 2 options. They can either just buy one of the 2 starter boxes, which is like $60, which is relatively inexpensive in comparison to, say, a full, wargaming army, or they can buy these. Like, these are like $30, and it comes with all the models you need and all the cards you need. It doesn't come with the dice, and it doesn't come with the boards and all that jazz. But it comes, so like if they wanted to say, we'll keep playing on your board with your dice, but I want to try a different army as opposed to the 2 that come in the box, they could pick up just one of these boxes, put them together, and play, because it's a self-contained thing. So something like that's not a bad idea. This I'm just picked up recently, which is why it's sitting here on the table. My wife is interested, actually, in all the gits, all the different, all the grots and gits, and she thinks that those little goblin dudes are pretty cool. So she's kind of interested in trying this out once I get these guys done. Ryan Burns says, "Hey, Uncle Adam, first time catching the show live. What do you think of the next step? What do you think the next step with Kill Team? Do you think they will use bigger models like Terminators and Crisis suits? Probably not. I don't think they want to go that direction because that's what they call 40K. Like, I've had people before going, you think they're ever going to bring rhinos into Kill Team? I'm like, no, that's what 40K is for. What I do think they're going to do is add more armies, add more units. I think that we will hopefully see Inquisition becoming an army that you can play in Kill Team. I think we're going to see hopefully some Chaos Demons. I'm 90% sure that we will probably at some point see Sisters of Battle when they launch for regular 40K. You're going to see Sisters of Battle stats for Kill Team. I mean, they just released, well, they haven't released it yet. It comes out next week on Saturday. But the new arena game for it is, in my opinion, this is maybe a precursor to a video I'm going to make. In my opinion, Arena is Games Workshop kind of trying to almost make a 40K version of Shadespire. It's not going to have the cards and all the, and the deck building and all that stuff, but it is designed to be a quicker even game without a lot of high terrain and all that kind of stuff. And it's designed to be a little bit more competitive because of the slightly more simplicity. So I think that, but again, you don't have to play it that way. You can still play it regular way. You can play commanders. I think they're going to add more, add-ons and things like that will allow you to play the game in different ways that you want to play it. If you want to play it more competitive and play a tournament at a store, then maybe Arena is the way to go. If you want to play with a slightly bigger army and maybe some real beat sticks and things like that and have them like really have a cool game that way, maybe you want to go with commanders. I mean, it's all dependent on what you're trying to do with the game, and I think that's going to be kind of interesting. I don't know that we'll see Terminators or Crisis suits or or vehicles or anything along those lines anytime soon. And I think that would be counterproductive to the way the game is designed, frankly. So, Aberrant says the Gits have such funny sculpts. Yeah, I think that's why my wife likes them, because they are kind of silly. Let's see here. And VJ Morph says that the Git sculpts are amazing. They are pretty cool looking. They have very expressive faces. I like models with very expressive faces. These guys, the goat people, aka Beastmen, I like that really expressive kind of like a lot of like that kind of stuff. I enjoy that stuff. I think that's fun. Let me see here. Question: I've been playing Eldar for years now, and I want to try Kill Team. However, I don't see how they're any good without Aspect Warriors. Guardians versus Primaris is hardly fair. I've not played against any Eldar, thankfully. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, sadly. I don't know jack about Eldar. So Aspect Warriors, Warp Spiders, Murder Clowns. I know those are technically Harlequins. I don't really know the differences between them, but I've heard people in the past saying, "Well, without Aspect Warriors, I can't play." And I'm like, "Well, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you." I don't know that they'll be adding any new, like to the factions they already have. They've already got, like certain things in just base kill team. Like, the Space Marines have got these certain factions. The Orcs have these certain factions. The Tau use these guys. I don't know if they'll be adding new stuff on down the road to the regular game. There may be an expansion. I mean, Lord knows if you want to play commanders, I'm pretty sure there's some pretty beefy commanders that you can use in the Eldar that could be a definite game changer. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know that they're going to add any other base troops. Let's just say that. Well, it's 11 a.m. at least here in my neck of the woods. So I want to thank everybody for coming to the show this week. It was a fun time. I kind of rambled on about my travels this upcoming year, or at least the ones that I already know about. So if you're going to be going to any of those conventions that I mentioned, I hope I can bump into you and say hi. And I'm always interested to say hi to people and to talk and all that kind of stuff at conventions. So hopefully, I mean, I always tell people they should go to conventions. When I film at conventions, those videos usually get not very good views, and that's fine. But I think conventions are important, and I think that it's a good idea for people to try to even get to just regular, like little local game conventions near them, and just to meet new people, honestly, because you're going to get there maybe and play some games and be like, oh, well, this guy lives only like one city away from me. It's like a 10-minute drive, and I didn't know that. And now you've got somebody else to play with. So yeah, that kind of stuff. Anyway, so like I said, there will be another Every Other Sunday show this upcoming Sunday. There's not going to be a week in between because I'm going to be, the week after that, I'm going to be traveling to Vegas. So instead of going 3 weeks without a show, we're going to have 2 weeks of show in a row, and then the schedule will be all gibbered up for a while until we get to Adepticon, and then it will switch back. But anyway, I'll keep you informed as to how this is all going to work out. But you'll see me again next week, hopefully, if you're able to make it to the show and if you're interested in watching. So have a good day and do some hobbying. And I'm going to go blow my nose or something because I'm all just still kind of stuffed up.